Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Paranormal Oddities, The Little Store with the Big Heart, Dragonfly Art and Soul, Niagara, where the real ghosts of Lockport hang out, Wild Raven Candles for those magical times, Queen of Tarts, Metaphysical and Bake Shop. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Tim Shaw, and you are here on a Tuesday night. Where else would you be? And just to guys let you know that we have probably one of the I'll just say it between all of us. I have one of the most kindest people that I've ever met in my life, because we had a little glitch that just happened, and he is still going to hang out with us, and that's what I love about it. So I'm gonna jump on this real quick. I want to bring in our guest, because our guest is someone who I really, without a doubt, I go and I appreciate so much. I really have just looked up to him, and it's an honor for him to be on this show tonight. So listen, he joined WKBW TV in 1983, and he's formerly of the stations at Hartford, Connecticut, and Roanoke, Virginia. He's actually a Western New York resident. He's born and bred here. He is got, you know what? People have red blood go running through their veins. I think he's got like kielbasa juice that goes through his brain, or his brain's drained. Same thing. That's what I think. We're all like that right now. In 2017, Mike was inducted into the Buffalo Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame, which is no easy feat. He's a meteorologist. He's a feature reporter, editor. He's a media personality. He's a puppeteer, Mike Randall and Friends, as well as a recreator of two of the most unbelievable recreations of portrayals of historic figures that you'll ever meet. So please, welcome to the guy that came down to my basement and survived. He was not afraid, and best of all, he didn't take anything with him, even though I offered to let him take something with him, but he didn't want it. So what I really love about him too is he has a passion for Western New York stories. He has a passion for everything great, and he has a passion for people. Please welcome probably one of the biggest, greatest influences on Western New York journalism. I'll just say that. Please welcome the amazing Mike Randall.
Thank
Mike,
you.
That's you, baby. That's you.
Thanks,
it's
man.
all you.
Thanks.
And I just want to let everybody know that you're so kind, because we were probably 20 minutes into the interview, and we had a massive glitch, and I've never seen that before. And Mike did not go and have a hissy fit. And
did you click the plug out or something?
That's what I was worried. I was worried I did that, but no, everything is good. You're with the werewolf. Your protection is just
now.
Just
my
saying,
dog's barking. My dog's My dog's like, I want to be on this podcast. Is this a podcast, or what is this
they
called?
Call it all them youngsters. They call them vodcasts now. Podcast.
It's a podcast. Okay.
A vodcast. So podcast is like what we used to do way back in the dark ages, before we had walkers and orthopedic shoes, Mike. That's what it is. Mike, listen, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I already know the answers to them, so it's great, because it's like deja vu here. It's a psychic thing now.
You know what? I'm so good. I'll give you different answers this time.
You're the best. I don't listen. I'm telling you. I don't care what Irv Weinstein said about you, or any of the old timers. You're still one of the best, Mike. Mike, listen, I want to just ask you seriously, journalism. What is it? Is this something that you always wanted to do, or did you want to perhaps do something a little bit different? Did you want to go and always be a part of the field, or maybe did it just kind of fall into it like most of us do with what we do?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist, And I actually used to send cartoons into Life magazine, which doesn't exist anymore, and hardly do I. Life magazine, Look magazine, all that. We had like all these huge magazines. There was no internet and only 3 stations on the TV. So our entertainment a lot of times was these beautiful magazines that used to come out every other week. And I'd send cartoons in. I got, rejection slips. I was the art editor in high school and all that. And then I sort of fell away from art and got interested in theater. And I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really got the journalism bug. I've only been sent out on a couple of hardcore stories when there wasn't another reporter left in the newsroom. It was like, we got sheriff who shot himself in the foot. Can you, Randall, can you go do that live shot? And I did it. That was a true story.
Really? Really?
Yeah. But I'm like, why are you asking me? I never did news in my life. I do feature stories. And to me, a feature story is, interesting person or place or event, or, it's usually got some people involved with it somehow, or a personality profile, or those are the kind of stories I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way I got into it, I was in Roanoke, Virginia, where I met my wife. Where I met my wife. I mentioned my wife. She's over here. She's my editor. And I was in Roanoke at the Barn Dinner Theater, and I was doing my Mark Twain show. And then I did a couple other shows. And then I was doing, I think at that point in my life, I would do anything for an extra couple of bucks. So I was doing like local TV commercials in Roanoke, Virginia. I'll send those to you sometime. You'll have a good laugh. And then one of the directors of one of the commercials said, you'd be really good as a PM Magazine host. And I was like, oh, cool. What is that? He says, well, we have this show called PM Magazine. And I said, oh, well, don't we already have a host? And he goes, he's going to get fired. Like, okay, this sounds interesting. How do I get this job? So I auditioned, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you they had 100 people audition for the job. It came down to me and another, like a local Roanoke DJ, and I ended up getting the gig. So I went from doing dinner theater to doing PM Magazine, which was a host. I was a host, but I also was a reporter, a feature producer. You would have to come up with stories and shoot them. So I did have some feature experience. And then I don't know, we left Hartford. I married my wife. We left Roanoke, went to Hartford for a year, left Hartford, and decided to come to Buffalo. And there were 2 jobs open, the PM Magazine job at Channel 2 and the Channel 7 job. I kind of wanted the Channel 7 job because I would be following in the footsteps of the great Don Pollock, the funny feature reporter who went on to Philadelphia. And so I was fortunate. I got the job at Channel 7. I started in August of 1983. And this coming August will be my 40th anniversary.
That's amazing. So, that's just amazing, Mike.
It's amazing I'm still alive.
No, it's not. You got gumption. You're like Twain. Are you kidding me or what? You're just like Twain. You know what? Everybody sees the soft teddy bear of you, but we know that deep down you're curmudgeon someplace in there, and that's what keeps us going. You and I, true curmudgeonness. That's what I always like to say.
We're not quitters.
Well, I won't say I'm not a quitter. I'll just say I just change my shirt once in a while. That's all.
And I told you when we did that rehearsal for this interview, I said,
oh dear Lord,
I said I was supposed to retire last year, but I forgot to. So no, I was actually going to retire, and my wife and I, we got season tickets for Shays. Because it was, I'm going to have all this free time. Let's get some seats, and go to all the shows. And then they ended up asking me to hang around for a while. I'm like, okay. So I wasn't doing anything else. I didn't have any other jobs lined up. So, and they put up with me for a long time. I mean, I've been through a lot of news directors and a lot of station managers. And there was one time when people left the station, we used to put a when they went on to another job, we'd put their picture on a milk bottle and hang it up in the back, and the whole wall was covered
Oh my
with milk
God.
bottle. And I said, I wish we'd have hung on to those, because sometimes I can remember the faces of people that have come through the station, but I can't always remember the names, connect the names with it. But a lot of people have come through the doors of Channel 7.
Well, I mean, let's face it. A lot of people. This is not Channel 7 WKBW here in Buffalo is not just a stepping stone. It is actually it's one of the larger markets. So people come through there as a launch pad. That's why I like to always call it like a launch pad. So I got to ask you, what's the secret to your longevity in one job? Because I know what the secret of my longevity was. I I was cranky and I did a good job, and I knew how to smooth out asphalt and concrete. That's all. That's the only reason why I could stay as long as I did. What was your secret?
I stayed under the radar. No, I honestly, I have to be honest. I almost got fired a number of times. Almost.
Really?
Yeah, almost doesn't count though in
No.
broadcasting. Because I would butt heads with the wrong person, or do something that, wasn't found with favor. But things had a way of working out. I mean, and I actually, over the years, I went on a number of job interviews, but then the idea of going somewhere, my family was
Hmm.
here. I grew up here. I was familiar with this area. Going someplace else, starting over again. Um, I don't know, that it just kind of lost its appeal. And I know a lot of people get into this line of work with the idea of doing that, going
Yes.
places. Um, Back in the 90s, it was 1993, because my youngest was 6 months old. And Phil Buth, who had been our former GM,
Hmm.
was in charge of Good Morning America. And he called me up. He goes, "How'd you like to do the weather on GMA?" I'm like, "Okay." He said, we'll fly your whole family here. You can stay for the week. Spencer Christian is going on vacation for a week. It was between Christmas and New Year's. I was like, big time, I'm going to New York.
Yeah.
And I think Phil had this idea that I would end up in New York doing feature stories and fill in weather or whatever. And so we went to New York. We didn't get to fly though, because my son had uh, tubes in his ears, so we had to take a
Right.
9-hour train ride to New York City. But it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. I met Dick Clark and Rosie O'Donnell and
Oh
all these
wow, that's great.
famous people the whole week that I was there doing the weather. And I don't know. And then Phil left GMA, and then none of that happened. And I was like, okay, well, at least I got to go to New York. That was fun. And I don't know. I've had a lot of fun doing different stories over the years. I was thinking about, because you're the ghost guy, you're into all of that paranormal stuff. I The first time I did a ghost series was when the first Ghostbusters movie came out. What was that, like 87 or something?
Yes. Yes.
And Ed Riley was a photographer for many years before he went on camera to
Hmm.
become a reporter. But Ed Riley, super photographer. He's retired now, quitter. And he's even younger than I am. And he's like sitting around just doing stuff, whatever his wife tells him to do. Fix that, do this, go over there and do this. No, he's having fun. Um, that's why I don't want to retire. I got too much stuff to do around the house.
Right
But
here. I'm with you. I'm with you.
so Ed and I were like doing this series, it was like, oh, we're doing ghosts, a local ghost. And I didn't know anything about ghosts, but we did, I don't know, it was like back when series were actually like 5 parts. It was a 5-part series. And we worked on it for 3 weeks. And the news
Wow.
director kept coming up. Did you ever see the movie Agony and the Ecstasy? Like Rex Harrison and
Yes. Yes.
what's his name?
Yes.
I'm drawing a blank now, but he was like, "When will you make a fit? When will you make an end? When I am done." And that's kind of, it took us 3 weeks to finish this series. And it was all the special effects. I had my wife and my brother and sister-in-law laying in a cemetery. Ed Riley's wife. And they
Oh
were
my
made up
gosh.
like ghouls, and walking through a cemetery and stuff. It was, and we won a ton of awards for that. And that sort of launched my interest in doing ghost stories, not so much in ghosts, because my philosophy about ghosts is I'll be glad to meet them when I'm dead. I don't need to meet them now. don't really have the time
Touche.
for it. And you know what I mean? It's like,
Yes,
I'll
I
be
do.
one. It'll be cool to hang out with them, but I'm not that interested right now. And that's not to say that I don't believe, but I haven't seen one yet. And I've done a lot of ghost stories. I've been with Ghostbusters, you know, when they set the flashlight and start asking little Timmy, did you die here?
Oh
Tim,
my
you know,
God.
that kind of stuff. And the flashlight blinks and all that.
Thermodynamics.
I don't know.
Yeah,
The
I
weirdest
know.
thing
I
that
know.
ever the weirdest thing that ever happened, and I to this day there's no explanation for this. Ed and I interviewed a woman named Nancy LaBianca. Nancy was a psychic, and she had told us about this house that she
I remember
had
her. Yes, I remember her.
cleaned, you know, of a spirit, and the spirit was not something they could see. They could only smell it. It smelled like urine and dried blood or blood. I'm like, okay. So we were at these people's house interviewing them. We interviewed them. We got some shots of them walking around the house and all that. Ed was doing all the video. I didn't even know how to, you know, I didn't know the right end of a camera back in those days. And so I took the tapes back to the station. They were 3/4-inch tapes, and I'm listening to the interview, and I hear a little, like a weird little voice in there. So then I got Ed in on it. He's like, yeah, that, and it was a voice, and it almost sounded like it was saying, Nancy, get me out of here. And it was really high pitched. And so then I told Nancy about it, and her boyfriend or partner was a skeptic. We had him as part of the story as
Right.
well. And he was like, you could have put those voices. And they were like, I wouldn't have even thought of it, you know? But then he took the tape and he was going to have people analyze it. And I never saw the tape again. But the moral to that story is, or at least a punchline to that story is, Nancy married the guy that was the skeptic. They were married for a long time. So
you'd be
yeah.
surprised. That happens. That happens a lot. The other thing is, you know, and when you say tape, we're talking cassette tape, aren't we?
Yeah, they were, but they were
Right.
huge cassette. They were,
Yep.
you know, 3/4-inch tape and this
Big
long.
ones, yeah.
And in order for you to put anything in there would
Yes.
be like beyond my technical capabilities. But
Well, that's what I do now, because whenever I have anything that's questionable, I send it right out. I have a friend up at one of the universities up in Michigan, and I just let him, you tell me what it is. You know, you tell me what hertz it is, what's comparative, and you just let it go. Mike, I got to ask you this one. How do you deal? Now, I don't have a face that really goes and can hide very much, Mike. So you go out in these feature reports, these, and you go to, and I know a couple locations you've gone to that I've like shaken my head at. How do you deal when you're out there and you go to yourself, dear God, this is hokum. This is like not this. This is terrible. How
what
do
do you mean, like ghost places? You mean?
Yes, like you're like,
I don't
oh
even
my
look at
God.
it. I don't even look. You know, when I do a ghost story, and I gotta say, people love them. People love we
They
were
do.
talking about stories in general. People love stories. I think we're programmed as human beings. We just like stories. You know, we used to all be sitting
Mhm.
around our loincloth around a campfire hearing stories, and it's just part of our
That, wait,
DNA.
Mike, that was last week.
Yeah.
Don't let everybody know about that stuff.
But but I think with the ghost stuff, for me, I love the stories. I love the story. I love, you know, the stories of the town ballroom, going down there with the owner, and
Mhm.
remember doing the story up at. Remember when the Frontier House in Lewiston was a
The
McDonald's?
old McDonald's. Yep.
I
Yes. Yes,
I
I
did
do.
that story when it was still a McDonald's, and I had the manager down in the base. And on opening day, all these lights went out, and we went up on the unoccupied floors that were up above, where supposedly the Masons killed, you know,
Yeah.
all this stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
great stories. It's great stories, and I never see a ghost, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. They just don't hang out with me, or they're not interested in me, and that's fine. Like I say, I'll see plenty of them when I'm dead.
Well, that's
So
exactly it. We all catch up Eventually we'll catch up, Mike. That's the way I
I
feel.
just always have this idea, like whenever I hear readings and such, I just have this picture of all these disembodied spirits standing at a payphone waiting to talk to us, but they don't want to say anything like that I can really relate to. It's going to be something like green jello or yellow car or she's holding a bouquet of flowers. Don't hold a bouquet of flowers. Just tell me
Tell me
where the
something.
money's hidden.
Tell me something interesting. Tell me something that actually makes sense. Yeah, I know. That's the biggest thing that really will drive you up the wall, and people love it, and people do love that. They don't care, and I think people are just too hungry for it. And I think people love that thrill ride. I think that's part of it. Is as a storyteller yourself, I'm sure that you understand that the thrill ride is all part of the experience. And I believe that a lot of people want that. I believe a lot of people are looking for that. And I think that's
Sure.
why people are, that's why people are forever going out there. And on the flip side, skeptics love it because of the fact that it gives them clear fodder to work with. And
Right.
I enjoy that. I personally I personally enjoy all that.
Well, I
What
try
make
not to be either when I'm on the story. I mean, I just treat everybody with as much respect as I can,
Yeah.
whether I like totally on board with whatever their story is. And I'm not, and a lot of people believe that they've had experiences or believe that, they've seen something or I'm just trying to think of some of the people. A fella I know that used to work at the town ballroom before it was the town
Mhm.
ballroom. He used to work there, I think, when it was back in the day when it was Studio Arena.
Right.
And he's got
Right.
stories that'll curl your hair, but are they stories or his experiences? And he's was very scared by him. So
90% of everything is always oral. 90% of it, it's all just it's their personal experiences. And I think that, to me, I like that. I really like that because it goes in with the whole tradition of storytelling. I don't really care if I can prove or not prove anything. And I mean, you were down in my basement, and I will say that probably 90% of the stuff that's down here, it's just sort of like, get it out of my house. Since it came into my house, this happened, that happened. Get it out of my house. So I just take it, put it in, and put it in my house, and wait for something to happen. And
don't you like sprinkle holy water on it first or anything?
I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that anal about it, Mike. I'm going to be honest with you. You know what? This is the way I feel. This is the way I feel. If it's bad, we'll know it within a short time. If there's something wrong with it, then we'll deal with it. I'll get a hold of my buddy Johnny Zaffis, and he'll give me a course of action to work with. But for the
Well,
most part,
listen,
you know,
the one thing I know about Ouija boards is you're not supposed to have one. And how many do you have? Like 150 of them or something?
I got 83, 84 somewhere on there. People always give them to me. Well, it's an orphanage
Bad,
here. It's a
bad juju, bad
Mike.
juju.
Yeah, but Mike, I get a chance to talk about it. That's why I just talked about an Earth Spirit this weekend with
I
with
know.
with Ouija board. But here's the problem with it. A lot of it is urban legend, and an urban legend is an urban legend. That's all it is. I mean,
Sure.
it's not really. It's got a little bit of basis in fact, but it's always a friend of a friend of a friend. Their uncle's cousin that all of a sudden the thing was levitating or whatever. And I have yet to have anything like that. I will say, Mike, that in my old house where we used to live, uh, I used to put them in an old carpenter's box, which is just like, it looks like an old trunk. And occasionally I would be up there working and I would get a knock. Now I know I didn't have mice or anything up there. So I would get like a knock or two that, I couldn't explain. I couldn't explain it. Don't know where, don't know why. I know it came from that area of the combination studio, extra bedroom. And if you ever had decided at that time that you wanted to have a sleepover, that's the room that you would be sleeping in, just to let you know. maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
No, I don't think I want to sleep there. Though, like I said, I don't particularly want to go, like sleep at Fort Niagara overnight or
Well, that's a neat
uh
place.
there's the lighthouse up on
Oh,
Lake
Dunkirk.
Ontario at
Oh,
Golden Hill,
oh,
the one at
Golden Hill.
Golden Hill.
Golden
And
Hills.
they
That I gotta say some stuff happened at that place that I can't explain. I
Well,
can't
they
explain.
rent that room out there
Yeah,
that,
yeah. It's
but,
great. It's great. Primarily, Mike, what I like to do is just get out and go to the places, and I like it because of the storytelling aspects of it. That's what I
mhm.
love about it more than anything else. Mike, what constitutes, do you think, a good feature? That's a
I don't
little bit of
even know.
that's like a
That's a
hard
hard
question. Yeah. Well, here, let me even simplify it. What's the process of getting of pitching a story for a feature?
I don't know. There isn't really a process anymore. My wife was in news, when I met her, and she's sort of like my go-to. She reads everything. I hardly read anything. So if it's not on Facebook, it can't be true. So I don't read it. No. Yeah. But she reads everything. And
Dear God.
I thought that was my dog. It was a
That's a ghost
ghost
dog.
brushing me on the leg.
That's right. It's a
Um,
ghost dog, of course.
and what's the process? I mean, if in my head it sounds like a story to me, and I start writing it in my head, uh, then I think it's a story. I had a photographer tell me I got to take this one ear thing out because it's beeping. I had a photographer tell me one time that you could make a story out of anything, which I think is literally true. Uh, but a good story, I mean, obviously, a good story has a person in it that you can sort of attach the story to. That's kind of what I go by. Somebody who does something interesting, or has a weird, interesting collection, or has an interesting job, or an
Mhm.
interesting situation. Those make good stories. And everybody, there's that old saying that everybody has a book in them. I think everybody's got at least a story or two. I get half the time when I'm doing a story, I get another story out of it from them saying, "Oh, did you ever think about doing the blah?" Or so I know so and so who is, that kind of thing.
Do you ever
So
get tired of people coming up to you going, "Do you know what would make a good story?" Because I get that a lot. Do you know what would make a great story? And I always feel bad for my wife because I have to stop there and I have to hear the story because that's my interest. That's just the way I am built. And my wife is going, my head's going to explode.
no, people used to come up to me and say, a weatherman is the only job that you can be wrong and still get paid. And then I would
Oh my
argue with that.
God.
I would argue with them and I'd say, no, that's not true. Doctors have patients die, so they screw up. Teachers sometimes don't connect with their students. Look at, like if you go through a drive-through and you order French fries with your hamburger and the French fries aren't in the bag. I said, there's incompetency in all facets of life. Ours is just on
Yes.
display for everyone to see.
True.
And
That's true.
so then I wrote a play about it called "Shoot the Weatherman," and they did it at Alleyway Theater. But it was the idea of this weatherman had given a bad forecast, and his friend got hit by lightning while playing golf.
Oh wow.
So he
I love
kidnapped him,
this
and
already.
he kidnapped him, and he was going to kill him, and all this stuff. But yeah, it was.
Well,
Hey,
here in Buffalo, I remember up until the blizzard of 77, the weather was just part of, just like it was stuck in there somewhere between news and sports. After the blizzard of 77, we got professional here. And you started seeing that. And I do believe that weathermen do get a bad rap because we are working with a, let's say an unknown, we have so many unknown elements that we work with and that you work with, I should say. So that's got to be brutal for you to sit down and just like try to
I'm
go
gonna
and
I'm gonna
will
get
you just
kicked out of the Weatherman Association for this, but I'm just switching headphones because I think my AirPods are dying. Are you there?
I'm still here, baby.
No? Huh. I just must have stuck it in the wrong.
There we go. We're hanging with Mike Randall today, and Mike Randall's got a little. We had a little technical difficulty earlier, and we got a second little technical difficulty now. We'll see what happens, but it'll be all good. It's all good. We were talking about storytelling, and we're talking about all different things. Mike, you still back here now? I'm not getting now, Mike. I'm not getting any. I'm not getting any audio from you.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. We're good
Sorry.
now, Mike. No problem at all.
Maybe we're cursed.
Hey, you never know. You never listen. I've had people come up to me and really swear that they've had a hex or whatever on them. But we're talking about the weather. You know, it's got to be brutal because it's like there's so many different things, and everybody's talking about the European models, and they're talking about this other. I don't know how you guys can turn around and put something out there and like cross your fingers and hope. I mean, that is like that to me takes more gumption than anything else that we do.
I loved when back in the day when I used to fill in for Tom Joles. That was my favorite because you know, in those days you had very limited graphics. You had all the time in the world to talk. You know, Tom, I think I have these on backwards. I think Tom, oh, that's much better. Tom had 4 minutes, and on a good day, if the weather guy gets 2.5 or 3 minutes, that's a lot. But now you've got like all the graphics. My experience doing the weather, and I did the weather. I was sort of like filling in around 1989, and then they dragged me kicking and screaming onto the morning show and said, "You're going to be our weather guy." I'm like, "I'm not a weather guy. I'm a feature reporter." They said, "We'll send you to weather school." Went to weather school through Mississippi State, got my SEALs, did all that stuff, became a certified meteorologist. But my experience with the weather when I was doing it full time was it was either really boring, it was a boring job because you're in the middle of the summer, it's hot, the lake temperature, the breeze, you know, all of that stuff. And it's like nothing's happening. I remember Tom Joles watching TV, you know, for 6 hours at night, you know, because there was nothing to do. You were only doing a 6 and 11 show. There was nothing to do in between. And you didn't have that many graphics to make anymore. Now you got a graphic for everything. And so it was either boring or it was really stressful because everybody in the world is breathing down your neck. You got your viewers that are like freaking out, like, are the kids going to be home for school tomorrow? You know, they got to know, am I going to go to work? Am I going to have 3 inches of snow that I can drive over? Am I going to have 6 inches of snow that I got to plow? You know, that stuff. You got your news director, you got your producers. They're all like, what can I say? What can you got to do this? You got to do more. And it was all like, you know, then it would spin out of control. So it was like one way or the other. It was never just like, you know, like, I don't know, just driving a nice, you know, car or whatever. But it was like boring or stressful. And I was so glad when I just was like, after 20 some years of doing the weather, I was like, can I just do stories? Oh yeah. Okay, good.
I kind of like that sidestep. Well, let's talk about little stories here. Let's talk about the beginning of you and Mark Twain, your relationship, the two. And a lot of people don't realize that Samuel Clemens, who was Mark Twain, actually lived here in Buffalo, and he's buried not too far away in Elmira. You started at a young age doing him, didn't you?
We think he's still buried there.
He might be. Wait a minute.
Do we know for sure that? I mean, maybe we got it. No. Yeah.
I have a great picture of you that you sent me. Look at this. Look at this young guy here.
I'm the one in the middle, by the way.
Just to let you guys. First of all, look at the hair. Look at the mustache. Look at that guy. He is the quintessential Mark Twain.
Well, I don't know about that, but
how old were you when you first started doing
I was trying
Twain?
to figure that out. It started for me in high school. I had a friend who did a little Mark Twain stuff. And I hope I didn't kill this again. I just brushed off my.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
And I saw him do a little Mark Twain, you know, presentation for one of the class shows. I was like, oh, oh my God, that's so funny. And he said, well, if you think that's funny, you ought to go see Hal Holbrook. He does a whole show, like 2-hour show. A 2-hour show of an old guy telling jokes. That sounds like something I would like to see. And I think I was like 17, and then maybe 16. I took a bus ride up to Toronto to go see Hal Holbrook all by myself, which was a big thing in those days. So go on a bus ride to Toronto.
Yep, I remember those.
Go see a show, and got his autograph, after the show. But the show, it was like, it was one guy on stage for 2 hours telling stories and jokes and just being so, I don't know, like just the person you'd want to invite to your house and listen to talk for 2 hours, smoking a cigar on stage, dropping these one-liners. And I was 17 years old. I'm like, I want to do that too. I want to put a bunch of makeup on and go tell jokes, And so I guess I was at Rosary Hill College, my first college that I went to. And I was an English major. And I wasn't doing so well in college either. I did about the same in college as I did in high school. But I would go to the library and I would listen to Hal Holbrook records over and over and over again. And I had this sort of history of listening to things and sort of getting, having it sort of connect. I did that when I was 9 years old. My parents had a Shenandoah album. Shenandoah was a movie that Jimmy Stewart was in. So when I was 9 years old, when I was 9 years old, I started talking like Jimmy Stewart. You say,
dear Lord,
Lord, and people thought I was weird because I was only 9 and I was talking like Jimmy Stewart. You say. And so I was listening to these records, and then I got this idea, like, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. So I memorized the material and I started putting together makeup and all this. And I went out and I did a couple of talent shows, and then I did Ruby Reds used to have a talent show. It was a big pizza place on Niagara Falls Boulevard.
Yep.
I showed up there in the costume and makeup. That's my worst fear now, is to be, in a car accident wearing the makeup. And go to the hospital and it's like, oh my God, his wig is coming up, his nose is.
Well, you and Michael Jackson would be,
you
have a lot in common then.
So so I put together a show, and then like I said, I was in an English department at Rosary Hill, and we wanted to raise money to get a radio station because I was interested in radio. And
there's a werewolf.
It can't be the mailman because there's no mail today.
Not today.
Or is there? Maybe there is. I forgot what I was saying. So anyway, so I put together a show, and then my first show was in 1972 at Rosary Hill College in the WIC Center, and I was 18 years old then. And then my 50th.
We can hear you fine. Don't worry about
my
it.
My 50th anniversary I had last year,
right,
on the exact same day, 1972 to 2022. Exact same time. I did it at the Riviera.
That's right.
And so that was my 50th.
And we actually do have a picture of you, by the way, before and after.
Yeah.
You haven't changed that much.
Mark Twain.
What was it that attracted you to the whole image of Mark Twain? Because a lot of people, when they see you, if they have done any reading on the subject, it's almost uncanny. It's almost, and I'm going to throw it in there, it's almost supernatural, because I know I've seen you doing both, and it is just crazy, because I sit there and I'm just like enthralled. Not just because, I respect what you do, but it's just, I'm just enthralled with the entire performance, because it's almost as if I'm sitting there with the embodiment of Mark Twain.
For me, it was the humor. The humor is what I connected with. And then the way he found humor, and the way he was able to put humor into almost everything, into politics, into religion, it just was a way for him to get a message across and to make a point. And he did a lot, he wrote a lot of serious stuff as well. And there is serious stuff in the show. It's not all, one-liners and jokes, but I don't know. I think as a kid anyway, that's what I connected with most. I think now I connect, because here I am. I'm almost the same age that I portray him at. I connect more as a parent, as somebody who's been around for
Right.
a while, and
Right.
maybe I have a little bit of wisdom, probably not Mark Twain wisdom, but I have a little bit of wisdom, and I don't know, I connect with that. I think throughout my life there have just been different kind of mileposts that I've connected with that character. I don't know. He was the first what we call the first great American comedian. And yet
Yes.
he was so much
Yes.
more than that. I mean, he was a humorist and he was funny and he was funny live and in person. So when you're doing a one-person show, if you can portray somebody that actually did get on stage in front of an audience and talk to them, that makes it a little easier. And that's why it was always difficult for me to come up, sort of come up. My mother was the one who was like, why don't you come up with another character? And I'm like who? Who's funny? Who's entertaining? And it took me a long time before I could really think of anybody that I wanted to spend a lot of time trying to do, because there's a lot of time
Oh, yeah.
involved in putting
I was
something
going to
like that
ask you. I
together.
mean, I was going to ask you the research involved in this. I mean, of course it's ever evolving, and of course I've one of those people that have actually seen you at your peak after, after all these years of honing the craft and all these things that you've actually gone and you've been able to go and almost. Well, here's a question I'm going to ask you. Have you ever been up on stage and just sort of like left? I won't say left your body, but all of a sudden,
I'm
uh-oh.
here. I'm here.
Have you ever just all of a sudden, just you're gone and maybe Twain comes through a little bit, or it's like so second nature to you that it's almost like, what would Twain do in this situation?
I've never had I never had a single moment
Wow.
when I was not me. And anybody that tells you that they become somebody else when you're on stage, there's too much. Well, there's just too much to get done on stage.
Right. There's too much going on too.
First, with a one-person show, you have to connect with the audience. Okay,
Correct.
if they don't hop on for the ride, then it doesn't matter how many punchlines you have, because no one's gonna. You know what I mean? They gotta like
Yes.
you, and you got to bring them in quickly and
Yes.
make them laugh and make them relax. And the audience, at least for my show, for my Mark Twain show, the audience is the other character. The audience becomes the other character in
Right.
the show, and they're very important to the show. That's why there's no two shows exactly the same. There's no two shows exactly the same, because I do, sneak in different material all the time. I mix it up a little bit. I will tell you a couple things that happen on stage. One is, I've done the show with 103 temperature,
Wow.
and I go on stage and I'm not sick. I don't feel sick. I'm not tired. I'm not achy. I was doing a dinner theater stint in Little Rock, Arkansas, back probably in the 80s. And I was sick as a dog for a week and a half, but I had to get out of bed every night and do the show. And audience wouldn't have known. And for that moment that you're on stage, you don't feel sick. The other thing
Right.
is, for my shows anyway, I've got like so much material with the Mark Twain show now. It's very hard for me to sit down, because I always sit down before the show and I go, what do I want to do tonight? How am I going to start it? Where am I going to go? I sort of like lay out my little outline, and that's all I go on stage with. I have an outline. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do this piece. I'm going to do this piece. I'm going to do this piece. And then maybe over here on the margins, I'll write. And if I have extra time, I'll do this piece and I'll do And so I try to keep the acts, first act and second act, to about 50 minutes. That's pretty long. But if
Right.
you're
It
funny,
is. It
if
is.
they like you and they're laughing, then you stay with it. But the other thing that happened is that time goes so fast on stage. If you're having a good show and the audience
Yes.
is with you,
Yes.
you have no sense of time. That's why I always like to have a clock. If there's not a clock in the room, I got to make sure my little pocket watch is working and that I can see it, because you don't want to you don't
Exactly.
want to wear out your welcome either. So.
Exactly. I'm a person that suffers from terrible stage fright. Terrible stage fright. And the one thing I found is that you get through it when you're on. It's the most exhilarating thing that you ever can experience. And it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter how you feel. When you're there, you're up at that top level. And that's where you feel most comfortable. And I know that's just the way I am. Hey, I got to ask you about the Mike Randall, Hal Holbrook little Donnybrook that happened. And I mean, it had to be like shocking because this was someone who you patterned a lot of, that really inspired you. I won't say patterned, but I'll say inspired you for it. And
Well,
I've just got to go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I put this show together. I did it at Rosary Hill with no idea of ever doing the show again. It was just, I'm doing it to raise money for a radio station that we never built. I don't think it ever got built. But at any rate, the next show was, somebody said my school would probably love the show, and I went and I did it at their school. Again, I was going to do it for free. I had no idea that I could make money dressing up and telling jokes. And the principal gave me a $25 check after the show. He goes, "This is all we can afford, but buy yourself some more makeup and some beer." And my buddy
Perfect.
Harry was with me, and we looked at each other, and we're sort of like, ching, 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 dollar signs, like, you mean you can make money doing this thing? So I don't know. It was before the internet, and I'm trying to think what the first dinner theater. It was the Buffalo Showboat, and I was working at Harry. Harry was a manager at McDonald's, and I was working overnights at that one on Hurdle. There was a McDonald's on Hurdle.
Yep, I remember it.
3 nights I worked there. I'm like, I don't think I can do this ever again. I was laying on the couch watching TV, a teenager, still only 19. I think my dad said to me, he goes, "Why don't you take your Mark Twain stuff?" I had pictures and I had a recording of the show. I'd done it, at that point a few times. I did it at Onondaga Community College. I had done it, maybe a handful of times. And I had photographs with the makeup and all of that. My dad's like, "Why don't you take your stuff down to the Showboat and, see if they'll hire you to do Mark Twain?" I'm like, a typical teenager. I'm like, "They'd never hire me. What are you, crazy? I'm just a kid. What would they hire?" So I went down there and talked to them, and sure enough, I got hired. And I don't know, I was supposed to do the show 1 day a week, and then we went to 2 days a week, and then I started being in other shows. So at one point I was doing 3 different shows.
Wow.
Mark Twain 2 nights a week. And my dad was a character. And at that point, when I was working 7 days a week, he goes, "The dishwasher there is probably making more money than you are." So,
isn't that typical? Yes.
Yes,
That's so typical.
Not working at McDonald's, I was like, I don't care. But no, it was a good experience. And that started it. And I got reviewed. Doug Smith, who loved him to pieces, God rest his soul. He was a great friend, a great reporter. He worked at Channel 4 in his later years, but always he was a big fan of anything that we did in dinner theater. And he was the one who sort of helped me get some recognition. He wrote a review for Variety. So then I had Buffalo reviews. I had a review from Variety. Then I would just, in those days, no internet, no email. You just like photocopy stuff and send it out. And I would get jobs in dinner theaters and such. And sort of, it went on from there.
And now, why did Hal Holbrook come down on you? Like, you dropped a hammer? Because other people were doing this too.
Right.
But he like
I was really accessible. Well, part of the story that I left out was when I was doing it in Alexandria, Virginia, at this little hole-in-the-wall place called Cedar Knoll Dinner Theater, I got reviewed by every single reviewer in the Washington, D.C. area. So they got wind of me doing this act. Then I got a letter from his attorney saying, "If you are doing any of Hal Holbrook's material, please cease and desist or we'll sue you." And I was like, okay, well, I might be, because when I first started doing this, I was like just listening to his records. Then I would, go to the library and get some stuff and start adding, So mine was a real mishmash. It was like some of his stuff, some of my stuff, some of Mark Twain's stuff. And so I went to an attorney and I said, he said he's going to sue me. I said, I think I'm just doing Mark Twain material though. And he goes, don't worry about it. It's public domain. I said, okay, I won't worry about it. Well, then after I did the Cedar Knoll gig, I ended up off Broadway in New York at the Little Hippodrome. And then that's when the you know what hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I was there for 5 weeks. I came home. The only job I could get was washing dishes at Arch's restaurant on Elmwood Avenue.
I remember these places, Mike.
And it was March.
Yes.
And I get this letter saying, we're suing you because you did Hal Holbrook's Mark Twain. So long story short, he came to town. I explained my situation. I was a stupid kid. I was 21 at the time. I said, I asked an attorney. They told me it was public domain. Yes, but you're using this particular line and this particular line, and you have this particular setup on stage. And I said, I didn't want to steal anybody's stuff. I just wanted to do Mark Twain. I didn't even know I was going to make any money with this. And then I ended up off Broadway in New York when I was 21. I think he pitied me. He was in a real bind because he had so many people asking for his script, people coming up to him in airports going, oh, I've been doing Mark Twain for 10 years. He told me he had one guy come up to him dressed as Mark Twain at the airport one time. And this was this guy's bread and butter. I mean, for me,
exactly. I agree.
I hadn't, as a kid, I hadn't made that much money at it. I hadn't caused that much. I got a lot of press out of it, but I hadn't really made any money. In fact, every dollar that I made when I was in New York, I used to pay for my parking because stupid me, I brought my truck with me to New York. It cost me all of my money to park my car for a month. So long story short, we settled out of court. I signed a consent order and judgment that I wouldn't use his material, and certain other things were in there, and we parted. I thought we parted friends, and he kept doing his show and I just kept doing mine. It was never my full-time gig. It was never my plan to make it my career. It was just something that I always really enjoyed doing. And I also made the point to him. I said, you're playing to 3,000 people a night at a Shays or Kennedy Center. I'm playing to 80 people in a dinner theater who probably aren't going to go to Shays or probably can't afford to go to Shays.
Exactly. Exactly.
It was, apples and oranges. And there are literally dozens of people who do Mark Twain now. I mean, people used to retire and, learn how to make balloon animals and be clowns. Now they retire and they want to do Mark Twain. So
it sounds like the paranormal business. It really does, Mike. Hey, I want to ask you, you also do something that's phenomenal. You actually are the embodiment of Charles Dickens. I have to tell you that when I saw you do the Christmas Carol, it was amazing. It was just amazing. Why Charles Dickens? Now, I mean, out of all these characters, all these historic personalities that you could have picked, what was so interesting about Dickens that you had to jump on it? I got no voice again, buddy. You may have to unmute. There you go. There you go.
My mother was always bugging me to do another, somebody else. I guess she got sick of Mark Twain. You can do Abraham Lincoln. You're tall, and I said, but he wasn't funny. Plus he didn't have a very good end. So I don't know. I really I thought about a bunch of different ones, but a lot of them had been done. Will Rogers had been done.
Right.
I thought about locally, what's his name from the Roycroft?
Albert Hubbard.
Yeah, because he's so fascinating.
Yeah, he was.
He went on the vaudeville circuit, and the money he made at doing vaudeville, and he apparently was very entertaining in vaudeville as a storyteller. The money he made in vaudeville, he used to fund the Roycroft. Because you can't make a lot of money making really good furniture and lamps and books. There's not a lot of money in that.
No, not well. Even at that point, I mean, the Roycrofters That was a whole different era. I mean, but still, I mean,
Right.
the whole concept of doing your best all the time really wasn't then and still isn't part of the American, the American makeup. As much as I hate to say that, but that's exactly it. Mike, I don't want to keep you all day because we did have a glitch earlier. And I know you're probably going to take your lovely wife out and treat her to flowers and bonbons and
Why is it a holiday?
Oh, it's President's Day today when we're pre-recording. Mike, what can we where can people go and find
What? What are you talking about? Hi, Tim.
How are you?
This is Gordon. Hi, Gordon.
Hi.
Hi, Gordon.
Am I on? Hello.
You're on. You're on, Gordon. Gordon, how can we
Hi.
how can our viewers find out more about your father there and you? Where can they find out what you're doing, the events you're doing, where you're going to be, how you're hanging, where are you hanging out?
We're hanging out here, Tim. That's all. We're just hanging out here. I don't know. Is it Groundhog Day yet?
I think you missed it.
Oh.
You slept through it.
Oh.
He's not the only one. He's not the only one. I'm
Gotta
retired.
go.
I fell right asleep.
Love you.
Love you, Gordon.
Love you. Gotta go. Love you. Bye.
I have Twain shows coming up in April at the Roycroft Pavilion there in East Aurora. I'm doing the 29th and 30th there. I'm sure I'll have some other stuff. I'm already booking Dickens stuff too. I'll be doing Dickens at the Kevin Oakey Theater in December. I think I'm doing 3 or 4 performances there. So yeah, trying to get back in the swing of things.
People listen, everybody needs to see his performances because they are unbelievable. Mike, I want to thank you so much for being a guest. Just stick around for a couple seconds while I do a quick outro. And again, Mike, thank you so much. Thank you for being a good sport when
We'll do it again sometime. If I'm still alive, we'll do it again.
I'll bring the cigars. I'll bring the cigars next time.
Maybe I'll do one as Mark Twain. I only have to dress like from here and up.
That's it.
That's
it.
That's all.
I would
Actually,
love
all I have
do
to do is put the wig on.
Wait a minute, Mike. I don't want to say anything, but the hair is getting pretty close to Mark's. Just I don't want to admit it, but yes, it's getting close. There you go. Well,
I can't make this one talk.
Oh well.
Hello.
Yes, you can. What a sweetie.
That's Mila. Say hi.
Mila. I will be right back. So just hold on the horses. Thank you so much, Mike. Because this was a ball. This is a dream come true for me, buddy. Because that's the living legend. It's a living legend. That's all I got to say. The living.
At least I am right now.
Well, listen. When you're gone, I'll still say the legend. Okay, Mike. I'll be right back. Okay. Guys, that is the one and only Mike Randall. He's phenomenal. He's a great person, and you have to go and you have to see him work live because otherwise you'll never get the full impact. And when he's up there, when I say he is the embodiment of Mark Twain or Charles Dickens, you must see it. So guys, thank you for being here tonight. We'll see you next week. Ciao, babies.